All right, welcome to another episode of Two Bros, One Beard. The bearded brother Michael. This is my brother John.
How's it going?
Another new album review for this episode. We're gonna finally cover, kind of late to the party here, the new Haken album titled Fauna.
It's time to wake up and die or regenerate. Your body quits me now.
It is their 7th studio album, although I was surprised they only had 7 because I feel like they have a new album out every year. But 7 it is.
Huh.
And yeah, I think the lineup is basically the same. Correct me if I'm wrong, except for the keyboard player, who I guess was
Right.
the original keyboard player, but he never appeared on another album. Is that correct?
Yeah, Peter Jones.
Okay, so Peter Jones, but so we got Ross on vocals, Richard Henshaw on guitars, Charlie Griffiths on guitars, Peter Jones, this will be their new keyboard player, Connor Green on bass, and Raymond Hearn on drums.
Nice to have some British names for once, right? We could just go read these off.
Oh, I know, they're easy to read. Well, they're not, I mean, not that easy, but easy enough.
Yep.
And then we got our man, Jens Bogren, who mixed the record. He's our favorite sound engineer for sure.
For sure.
And so he mixed The Mountain, he mixed
Affinity.
Infinity, and then he mixed this album. To me, like right away, I was like,
And that EP, the Restoration.
oh, okay. Yeah, my initial thoughts on this album was like, man, this album sounds great. I didn't even know Jens mixed some previous albums, but I feel like this is their best sounding album. Maybe they're just they got better equipment nowadays. I don't know. They probably improved as musicians over time. I just feel like this is the best sounding record to date. To talk about a little bit about the lyrics, I have a couple quotes. One from Ross Jennings. He says, "The premise of the album, when we started writing, it was that every song would have an animal assigned to it. They all have something related to the animal kingdom that we could write about, but they also connect to the human world. Each track has layers, and some of them are more obvious than others." And then a quote from guitarist Richard Henshaw. He says, "It reminds me of The Mountain. There we had the idea of not really a narrative-based album, but more the concept of climbing a mountain and overcoming obstacles along the way. Then we took that and thought about it and how it could relate to our everyday lives. All of Fauna's animals relate to us personally." So those are 2 quotes that I found. Yep.
I mean, it's cool because, we obviously had Victor, we had Virus, which were, one kind of full narrative from beginning to end that seems to have kicked off with Cockroach King back on the mountain. And I think there's some allusions to Visions, the second album as well.
Okay.
And but I mean that's more your traditional concept record where it's telling a narrative, and it's kind of sets back to where The Mountain was more of a thematic record.
See, I always thought it was a concept record. I didn't know the story, but clearly it's just thematic. But
yeah, so it definitely gives you a different feel as a listener going into it, that these are standalone tracks, but there is kind of that theme that's sort of keeping it together.
Yeah.
And I do like that as a change every now and then, similar to, Iced Earth has a ton of concept records, but Glorious Burden, for instance, you can get this kind of this feeling across the entire thing from beginning to end about what it's trying to, what's trying to share with the listener.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And I'm particularly fond of the third track on the record. I think it was the first single, The Alphabet of Me.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
Because Ross was taking some inspiration from the Philip K. Dick novel, D. Robot's Dream of Electric Sheep, which was kind of main source text for the adaptation of 1982's Blade Runner.
Oh, okay.
The Scott classic. And so you can kind of see some of the themes from that film and, by extension, that writing in this track in particular. And but yeah, so I've personally been following Haken since Affinity, the 4th record. And that was kind of the record that finally sold me on them, because I kind of thought, Cockroach King kind of has its charm to it, and I was sort of interested. never really got too heavily into the Mountain. But Affinity was that one record kind of like from start to finish that I was, where it really grew my appreciation for the band. And I think part of that was because I thought the writing was a bit more traditional, even though these guys are just incomparable musicians. I mean, the way the brains work in terms of rhythm structures and melody writing and all that stuff is just kind of beyond me. So I think that, I just may not be quite able to comprehend sort of what they're doing at times.
I always felt that some of their stuff just kind of goes over my head.
Yeah.
Like you almost feel like you have to be a musician to understand what they're doing. Yeah.
Right. And that was the thing with Affinity is I found enough tracks that were pretty conventional.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still not pop songs, but like conventional in the way like Dream Theater is almost. Where, it really kind of makes sense to, compared to what I'm used to. And then I felt the same way about Vector. I mean, once I really got into it, and the same thing with Virus, I think there's enough tracks that are just kind of there. You can hear enough influence of like Toto and Dream Theater and stuff like that, where it's just, to me, they're kind of more conventional progressive metal songs. And I think this record overall does a good mix of, I think, both kind of where they, to me, that experimentation on the Mountain, and then so kind of the more conventional songwriting that we got with Affinity and with the last two. Yeah. But for you, you said not exactly your favorite band, or you're not the hugest Haken fan. So tell me a little bit about how you came into this band and discovered them. It
was recommended to us by, I think we went to a Century Media sale or whatever, and there was a guy behind us in line, and we were talking Dream Theater, and he just, threw out Haken because The Mountain had just come out. And I remember seeing that, that album advertised and the artwork. And he obviously compared it to Dream Theater, another progressive metal band. That's my favorite genre. So I think I listened to him maybe once, like, I don't know how many years ago that was, 7 years ago or something. And I maybe finished The Mountain once, and I was like, I don't know if it's quite for me. I'm still not a huge Ross Jennings fan. I appreciate his talent. Like, he's clearly a very gifted vocalist, and he could do so much with his voice. I never loved the sound of his voice. I don't know if it's the melodies or his voice is a little too robotic for me. And then I always thought this is what the comparison I would draw. You know how Dream Theater kind of describes their music as systematic chaos, and to where you could clearly see it's chaotic during like the long instrumental sections, but there's a clear system to their writing. I feel like Haken is more chaos than they are system. So to me, like I said, some of their songs just go way over my head, or I feel like it's too progressive where I'm like trying to find the melody, or the melody's just not, written in a conventional way, or the song's not structured in enough of a conventional way that I could really gravitate towards it. Mm-hmm. But I like them enough. They're one of those bands, I don't know if you have bands like this, where I'm a fan. When their new album comes out, I'll listen to it like 3 or 4 times, and then I'm good. Mm. They're that type of band for me. But my first impressions on this new record is I think The Mountain to me is probably their best, but this is right up there with it. I like it a lot more than Vector and Virus. So I don't like them when they get too heavy. I don't feel like that it really serves them well. So this album wasn't too heavy for me. A lot of really mellow moments, and then just the clarity of the mix. Usually their last 2 albums, like I'm not really hearing the keyboards enough, or it just kind of gets lost for me. This had a lot of nice synth moments. I mean, the drums just sounded killer, the bass, and just a cleaner guitar tone, not too much, not too heavy. What are your first impressions, and then I'll give kind of my favorite tracks on the album if you want to talk about yours as well.
Yeah, my first impression was that I really liked. Like the Alphabet of Me, I really enjoyed. That was the first single. And then I think maybe Taurus was the next one.
I think so.
And then Love Bite.
Great opener. I love the way this album is bookended. It's a perfect opener and a perfect closer. And they feel like...
They do. It's sort of like, I like when bands do that, where the epic on this album is arguably Elephants Never Forget. That was the song that I heard the most buzz about from people who had review copies and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a second, but But yeah, to your point, then after that, there's you can't really go more epic than that. So you kind of end. It reminds me of Circus Maximus, Isolate, where you have help me out here. The long track is Madness.
Something of Madness, Mouth of Madness, or something.
Mouth of Madness, and then you have. I mean, there's 2 tracks after that, but it definitely has that closer, which is a bit more. And it's just tamer and less epic,
Where you could kind of like take a breath after, something.
Yeah. So as far as the rest of the singles, I mean, we got Nightingale about a year ago because I remember they played it when I saw them in June with Symphony X.
Okay.
And I didn't love that song when it first dropped. I still don't. It's easily my least favorite of the album. I kind of see that as kind of on the outside because they seem to have produced and made that prior to really.
I think that's what
they were doing with this record.
They said I don't think the original intention was to have that on the new album, but I thought it felt it fit kind of seamlessly to me. I mean,
it does.
It sounds like everything else on the record to me, at least tonally.
Yeah, it doesn't really take away from the overall sound of the record, anything like that. I can't help but sort of think of it as sort of separate in my head.
Okay.
But thematically, I mean, Nightingale, it definitely fits in.
Yeah.
But beyond that, my other first impression was I was getting a little lost in some of the other tracks. Like, okay, so Nightingale, Sempiternal Beings, Beneath the White Rainbow, Island in the Clouds, and Eyes of Ebony. Those 5, if I counted correctly, they seem to all have kind of this little slower build in the beginning.
Yeah.
But on repeat listens, what I've discovered is there's not a bad chorus on this. Like everything.
I know that's what stood out to me. Yeah.
Yeah, an amazing chorus, and that's the part of each song that's really sticking with me now as I kind of look back on this album. And yeah, overall impression would be I think it's a more complete record than Virus was. I think I think Virus, because it's so bogged down by such a long track there at the end, it just doesn't feel like there's necessarily enough variety.
And I feel like Vector and Virus are a little too short at times. Like
they're shorter. I thought Vector had a bit more of a bit more dynamic. Besides,
but it was it like 42 minutes or something, which is crazy for.
Yeah, I mean this one's only an hour, but besides Canary Yellow from the last record, I thought it was all pretty heavy. And
yeah, too heavy for me. And I actually didn't like the epic on the last record. Just didn't care for it. So, and I like the epic on this one a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely liked it, but I thought it maybe borrowed a little too much from. Now that I look back on it, maybe borrowed a little too much from Cockroach King, similar to how I always thought that Shattered Fortress maybe borrowed a little too much from the other parts of the 12-step suite when Dream Theater did it. It's almost
so it doesn't feel like a new song.
Yeah, but anyway, enough about the last record. But that was kind of my initial thought. It was just there was a little too similar of those 5 tracks I mentioned. But however, on repeat listens, as I've sort of processed it and digested it a bit more, each song definitely has its own character and it's and their own kind of unique parts. I mean, I love Beneath the White Rainbow. There's that section kind of towards the bridge where Ross does this really high range, and it's kind of like that radio frequency kind of vocal effect.
Distorted vocal effect, yeah,
distorted vocal effect. It reminded me a lot of something I know I've heard James LaBrie do. We were talking.
You're trying to find the exact song. But
yeah, but I guess kind of like similar to. I mean, he definitely used that effect on This Dying Soul, and it's kind of like in the way it's sort of like a call and response thing, kind of like you get on The Glass Prison. So
yeah.
Love that. And then Island in the Clouds, that whole bridge section they didn't mention this in their track by track, but man, to me, it's like a total like Tool tribute. I mean, it's the words are so syncopated, and with the guitar being kind of structured the way it is rhythmically, it just reminds me a lot, especially of Fear Inoculum, the last Tool record. So I love that. Love Bite is, you definitely hear that Toto influence.
What's I'm trying to think of the song. The instrumental break on this album where the mix is so clear that you could hear like the drumsticks like clang, and I forgot, it's a really cool section. Huh?
I did not catch that.
Oh, but it's awesome. The drums sound amazing on this record.
Yeah, and you were right about that. I mean, and I thought the last two records sounded really good too, but there's definitely something special that JB brings to the table.
Yeah,
right?
only JB could capture, you know?
Yep. And it just makes everything stand out, and it's really crisp and clean. Not to mention, it doesn't hurt that these guys are just such amazing players.
Yeah, of course.
That has to help in the the mixing.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes it easier.
You've got like perfect tracks to work with.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking too about this record is what because I think we got a little bit more of on the last two albums is that I know both Richard and Charlie are insanely good guitar players.
Mm-hmm.
Can probably do it all. I mean, they were Portnoy's backing band when he did his Shattered Fortress shows.
Yeah, along with Eric Gillette, of course.
Along with Eric Gillette. I didn't, there's not like great footage of any of that stuff. So
yeah,
it's hard to know who's playing the guitar solos and all that. But anyways, what I'm getting to is they're obviously very capable of some great solo playing as well. And you don't get a lot of guitar solos.
That's very true. There's not one that stands out, or it's almost like it's like the beginning of a guitar solo. You think it's going to go into something, and then it just like stops, abruptly. Yeah.
They've done them over their career, and you can obviously hear how capable they are at doing that.
Yeah.
It's almost like they sort of exchange their talents for what they do interestingly, chordal wise and rhythmically, and
yeah,
and the riffs too. I mean, other than kind of like, the intro to Taurus is a little monotonous, but I
want to comment on that because I thought, to me, it sounded like, which I appreciated, a band of their like musical prowess to start an album that sounds like someone who just plugged in their first guitar and just started strumming away.
Their first 8-string. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
yeah,
that's pretty nice. Now I feel like, I could play an intro to a Haken song.
I know, right? Well,
I feel like they did that intentionally. Yeah.
They were going for kind of a like Gojira thing, they were saying, and but then obviously it goes off from there into total Haken territory.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the only thing, is like, I don't want too many solos. Then we're going to talk about Redemption next week. And But at the same time, and it's not just because I need a guitar solo, it's because I believe that these two guys could do something that's really interesting and really, and that's always the trick with this caliber of player, is like you get a John Petrucci who's not just an amazing shredder.
Yep.
He writes solos that are really tasty, and while you can't, like hum all the fast parts, figuratively speaking, they're hummable in a sense, where it's like, wow, that's really pleasant melody.
Yep.
So I think it's the only thing I'd like to hear more of on this, but I think overall, I mean, and then we got to talk about Elephants Never Forget, because I mean, it's what I went into that song with a lot of expectation, and it met every bit of that expectation, because I was just like, man,
it is, yeah,
so cool. I mean, it didn't remind me as much of Gentle Giant as people were saying vocally, because it didn't have I was expecting Ross and the other members, because they all sing pretty much, to just do like this crazy like 5-part counterpoint and just madness. I didn't quite get that, but I think the way it's structured is maybe where people are getting that Gentle Giant thing. But lyrics are really cool on that. It is not quite like About the Elephant Man, but similar, but it has some.
Well, I mean, that the introduction sounds like you're going to the circus or something, and it kind of sounded like the song I was asking you about, Celestial Elixir. Is that the song? Yeah. Where it kind of has like that breakdown that's almost like makes you want to dance, like that dance he did at Frog Power. But for this, to me, this song just encapsulates like everything they do well. It's heavy in the middle.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it reminds me of like their earlier sound, and then there's like a really cool Queen vocal section.
Right.
And a good instrumental break. I mean, the one complaint I do have about them is I wish sometimes they would just extend the instrumental breaks a little bit, let the songs breathe a little more. I know that would maybe add too many minutes to a already long record, but maybe do it to a couple songs. Go full Dream Theater where it's like a 4 or 5 minute break. It's kind of just let loose. But I mean, it's epic enough. And yeah, I would call it like the quintessential Haken song. If someone was like, "Hey, what's Haken all about?" I might show them, Elephants Never Forget. So
Yeah, I think I would agree. Yeah, definitely. And if they didn't have the patience for 11 minutes, then I might go with The Alphabet of Me. I think that just such a good chorus that I think so many people can latch onto and find something to love. And
I
then,
like their more kind of like modern pop sound. I like his vocals when he sings more in that pop style, more of the either they do like an 80s, pop rock like a Toto, or it's more like even like
80s,
into
yes.
or like a modern pop almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to me, I like that stuff because it's an easy listen. It's a nice like respite from like the crazy stuff. So you get that with The Alphabet and Me, and you get that with Love Bite, which is more of like an 80s Toto sound to me. But I think those songs are what you need. And to me, that's why this album has a lot more replayability for me. So, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. And then the closer is great too. I mean, Eyes of Ebony, found out listening to the track by track commentary that Richard wrote that song about his dad passed away.
Okay.
So it's kind of a tribute to him, and there's some allusions there to Pink Floyd and some more personal attributes about the man that we're not privy to. But it's just really, really cool song, and
it's an emotional song. It's really really hits you.
Yeah, and I think it might be my favorite chorus on the album too. I just think that the I don't know, just the melody of it is just so infectious.
A lot more catchy stuff than I kind of remember them doing, which
that's the thing, right?
Great choruses and good melodies on this one, and that's kind of what I felt they were lacking on the last couple.
I think that's what they needed to. They've continued to get better at.
Yeah,
honestly.
For sure.
And remember, this is a band. I think that Aquarius came out in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I think that's right. So, we're talking, in a 13-year span, these 7 records. I mean, what a massive catalog already, and just how much this band has accomplished is insane. Yeah. And really cool band to watch. We've lamented before about Fates and Dream Theater and some of these bands we love that are getting older. I mean, Haken is one of those that hopefully we have many, many more years to look forward to new music, and
that's true. Yeah,
we know they're going to try and develop new things, and I think as fads come and go, they might incorporate some of that. I think some people had issue with some of just how genty like some of their riffs are kind of all the time. I don't think that's true for this record. I think once you listen to it more and more, you find a lot more variety than that.
Definitely.
But I think as that will inevitably sort of pass away or evolve into something else, we'll definitely get to see them do other things. I think that rather than just get better and better at what they do, I think they're going to continue to evolve, which is really, really exciting.
Yep, think so too.
So, I mean, I absolutely would recommend this record to any fan of progressive hard rock or progressive metal.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're a Haken fan, for sure, you're going to love this. And definitely check it out. I think we both really like it. Yeah,
agreed. I mean, like I said, I'm not even a huge fan, and I think this record's just excellent. It's not. I would say it's closer to progressive rock than progressive metal, or more like classic progressive metal, kind of like more of an earlier Dream Theater heaviness. But yeah, it's great stuff.
Right on. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up here for another episode of Two Bros, One Beard. I want to thank everyone for stopping by and checking out this video. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Take care.